time for another kit build. This is from Banggood. It's another clock, and it is called the Geekcreit DIY C51 DS3231 Gravity Sensor LED Digital Phantom Desktop Clock Kit. You got that? I do hope you have, because I don't really think I've got the energy to repeat it. But there you go. It is a clock kit. Basically, it's got, I don't know, some form of accelerometer in it, which means it doesn't matter which orientation you have the clock in, it will just flip round. Sorry, I had a slight interruption there. Anyway, so here we go. This is the kit, and you can see it's got two large matrix displays, typical potted LED jobs. Couple of those. That's the main board, and as you can see here, worryingly, have I got that upside down? Yeah, we have surface mount. Let's get the light on it. We have surface mount, and that looks quite a lot of pins to solder on there, so that should be interesting. But yeah, so we've got an IC there and one there. Looks like it might be a capacitor there. Anyway, let's have a look at the parts, I suppose. Comes with a USB cable. Just about all these kits from Banggood are USB, 5V, half an amp powered. So we've got, and the other thing is they tend to use mini USB connectors as opposed to micro, which is no bad thing because the mini's a bit more robust. And then we have the bag of bits, and let's pop that open and have a quick look at what we got in here. Pour it all out, get it a bit more central. We've got nuts and bolts there for the case. The case, I won't take it apart just yet, we'll do that a bit later, but that's just protective paper on it. But there's a smoky glass type of acrylic plastic. There's one of the ICs. Again, surface mount. Should be interesting to fit. Don't know if that's a transistor or no, it's a power regulator or something, I don't know. Again, surface mount. These will be capacitors, surface mount capacitors, and likewise we've got some surface mount resistors, 103, which I forget the value of that is. That's the micro USB connector, and the battery holder. Some of these kits, in fact quite a few of these kits, they actually supply a battery, but I'm tended to notice the ones I bought recently, there are no batteries. So, which is a shame, because that means you've got to separately get them, but never mind. Small surface mount, electrolytic capacitor there. I'm going to focus. The inevitable piezoelectric, I think, buzzer. And what else have we got here? I'm not entirely sure what that is. Is that a button? Yeah, that's a momentary button. Yep, little button. We have a lamp of some description. There's some mercury in there. Okay. Right, well there you go. There's your. It's not an accelerometer. It's I don't know what you call that, but I suppose that's a little bead of mercury in there. And as it moves, it goes from one contact to the other. And I'm guessing that's how it gets its orientation. How interesting. I've not seen that before. Okay, fair enough. Bit different. Another momentary switch there. A couple more They transistors, surface mount transistors, some sort. Don't know. So that's basically it. What have we got here? Well, it's sort of taped up, but that looks like another. That's the other IC. Again, surface mount. We'll open that up in a bit. Now, the manual to build this, or the instructions to build it, and you can probably work it out yourself to a degree, except for position of the, which resistor goes where. But there is a manual for it, which is there is a link to it on the page where you purchase the item. So you just need to go onto Banggood and put in that description I mentioned earlier. I think probably if you went onto Banggood and just searched for DS3231, you'll come to this kit. So, as I say, it's got a manual on how to construct it, and just have a quick look at that at the moment. And basically it just takes you through the steps of installing the components. In fact, I can just show you here the manual. So it starts off by installing the looks like the micro USB connector. Then it goes on to one of the ICs. It's pointing out to you the polarity, well, not the polarity, but the position, so that dot on the IC. Let's see if I can make this a bit bigger. So the dot on the IC, you see there, corresponds with the dot on the PCB. Goes into soldering. That microcontroller, as they call it, and gives you images as you go along on how to complete it. So reasonably straightforward. Again, you're dealing with surface mount components, so you do need to have a little bit of time and patience. The way that I deal with surface mount components is to solder one connector. So for example, if we were talking about let's say that capacitor there, in fact, to be honest, their soldering looks as bad as mine, but anyway, I would have put a blob of solder on that pad, and then using tweezers I'd offer the capacitor up to the pad, then with the other hand melt it with the soldering iron and just gently push the capacitor into the pad, let that cool, then press down on the capacitor, heat it up again and drop it down to the board just in case there's a gap, and then once I've done that, just simply solder the other side. And frankly, when it's dealing with something like the ICs, it's the same principle. You just solder one pin, and once that's lined up with all the other locations and the pin locations, then you just go block, 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 and solder each pin. This one's going to be the interesting one with its many pins. Of course, that makes them very tiny, very close together, and susceptible to bridging. In other words, getting solder across more than one pin. So let's just quickly flick through this, and you can see it gives you step by step. Then installing the battery holder, easy enough. Then 3 momentary switches, so you've got a set, and then plus and a minus, so kind of up down type arrangement. And then it moves on to cutting the long pins. That's something that might have been the piezo buzzer, I'm not sure. And then it's installing the what do they call it? They haven't actually given it a name. Oh, there is another. Oh, mercury. It's a mercury switch. Of course it is. What an idiot. Mercury switch. So that's good. That's something a little bit different. Quite like that. and there is, I think, pretty much the completed board from what I can see. There's not an awful lot to it. It's fairly straightforward. So I'm going to put the, I'm actually going to build up the board, and as soon as I've done that, I'll come back to you. Okay, right, we'll finish the build of the main board. Some light on the subject. Okay, so there we go. Nothing particularly exciting. The main IC here, I've got everything upside down, haven't I? The pads on the motherboard, on the main board here, do have a certain amount of solder. So all I've done with these is literally put the IC down and heated the pins up, and they're just stuck to the small amount of solder that already comes with the board. Whereas with this IC, which has larger pins, I've actually added solder to it, but these are so fine. I just thought I'd try and get away with just using the solder let's probably just bring it back out into focus. Yeah, just using the solder that's actually on the board itself. So just a few resistors there, a couple of caps there, a couple of electrolytic caps there. That's a speaker transistor, I think. That's the micro USB, mini USB connector, which also needs to be connected at the back, as well as these 4 pins at the side. So you've got one there and one there. Those are the only critical ones because they're the ones that provide the 5-volt supply. Other than that, battery holder, 3 switches there, and of course the micro switch, the mercury switch, which we can see in operation there, which just lies flat on the board, and that is also surface mount. It's not a through hole. So the next thing to do is to install the LED matrix, which is what I shall do next. Okay, right, well, I finished all the soldering, and I've also installed the LED matrix. A few things to note, one in particular. First of all, I don't have the battery. It's a CR1220 that's required, so I need to get some of those, but they're fairly cheap. Important thing to note is that when you're installing the LEDs, the orientation is noted by the writing on the edge of the LED, and if you just look at the PCB in that position and the writing in that position, then you'll get the correct orientation. It just doesn't seem to be any other way of getting it right other than looking at the writing. The manual does sort of show that, but there you go. I'm pretty sure that's the correct orientation. The only way to find out, of course, is to power it on, but we'll do that in a second. The other thing you'll notice is that what I've done is I have made the LED matrices stand up at each end, so they're not flat. And the reason for that is to create as small a gap as possible between the two LED clusters. That way you'll get a much better representation of the display, because there are words like time and date and probably alarm and stuff like that, and of course the time itself. And if that gap is nice and thin, it will look a lot nicer. And the fact that it's slightly concave like that, when you're looking at flat on, and certainly when it's inside the case, it won't matter. So the next thing to do is to power it on, and to do that we've got the cable that it came with. I'm just going to use this power pack just to test it. So there we go, we've got the power pack plugged in, and the moment of truth, will it work? So there we go, so let's put it in. Wow. Oh, that's annoying. I'll see if I can stop it beeping. Okay, there we go. Right, I think it's trying to say New Year's Day there, but I don't think that's right. Let's switch the lights off so you can see New Year. I think it's pre-programmed with things like Christmas Day, New Year's Day, I think the Chinese New Year. You'll see this flickering and flashing. That's the camera causing that. It's not the display. The display is very bright, it's red, and it's a very deep red. It's a really nice looking display. The camera is not doing it justice at all, so don't get excited by the way it looks on film, because it won't look like that in real life. It's a very deep, very bright red, and I kind of like it. So there we have it. Next thing to do is to put it in its case. So let me just do that, and I'll show you the finished product. And here it is, finished article. So sandwiched between two smoked glass type pieces of acrylic rather. You can see the bend in the LEDs that I put in there, and I think that works. Certainly you can't see a gap between the two sets of LEDs, and it's quite a wide gap because you need to be able to get your fingers in there to press these buttons, which you'll need when setting the device up. And so let's just have a look at the I'm not going to set the time and everything, because nothing too exciting about that, and it's not going to hold it in any case, because I don't have a backup battery. But what we'll do is we'll put the power in and see what it looks like. Oh, that is so annoying. Right. You know, again, you're not really going to get the full effect, but that does look really nice behind that smoked glass effect. Acrylic really does show through very, very nicely. Animations are very smooth. Apologies for the flashing effect, which is down to the camera, it's not the clock. But I can guarantee you that looks really nice. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So straightforward enough. Let's put the lights back on again, unplug it. Pretty robust little thing. It will stand up quite happily. Oh, the one thing I didn't test, let's do that. It's going to beep at me again. Shut up. Right, let's try turning it upside down. Yeah, that seems to work. So that's the mercury switch working. I'm going to tell on 0000. So let's get it to say something new. Flip over. New Year, New Year's Day. Yep, that works brilliantly. So that is fine. The minimal soldering I did on that main IC in the middle there seems to have worked well. I just need to get a backup battery in there, and we're good to go. I'm really pleased with that. It wasn't expensive. I think it was about £8. Was that going to be $10, something like that? You know, for an evening's entertainment, which gets you ending up with a tangible and useful item like this, yeah, I think that's money well spent. I enjoyed that. So that's a good one. Worked first time. Need to be careful with the soldering because it is surface mount. But yeah, you should enjoy this one. I certainly will. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching. Just as a reminder, I'll see if I can find that cracking title for this device. Yes, so it's the Geekcreit, which is Geekcreit DIY C51 DS3231 gravity sensor LED digital phantom desktop clock kit. Oops, I got so excited there, almost chucked the camera on the floor. Let's have a look on the no, I didn't remember all of that word. I did read it off the iPad, so there you go. That's that's the full description there. £8.87. So that's not a lot of money really. Not these days. Enjoy it. Thanks for watching, and I'll come back for some more another time. Cheers for now.